Good evening, and I hope you're having a lovely Sunday wherever you're watching this from. My name is Chebet Birir, and welcome to yet another episode of the Health and Wellness Show. This is where we educate you, we empower you, and we inform you and inspire you to take full control of your health and live your best life. Karibuni sana to today's episode. And today we are talking about knowing your self-worth. And knowing your self-worth comes from what we call self-esteem. And to help us unpack all of that, what is self-esteem? What is your self-worth? What is knowing your worth? And how does it come about? What does it take to know your worth? I have two people on set. One is Olive Orao. She's a digital creator and an emotional intelligence coach. But before she became that, she's been through a journey. At one point, she wanted to bleach her skin because of, she'll tell us why. She'll tell us why she wanted to bleach her skin. She'll tell us what her journey has been with self-esteem and emotional intelligence and how she got to where she is today. Karibu sana, Olive.
Thank you.
We are so glad to have you on set.
Thank you.
The other amazing human being we have is counseling psychologist. Please tell us your name.
Alina.
Alina?
Kende Obado.
Alina Obado.
Yes.
Alina Obado is a counseling psychologist, and she'll help us understand the psychology behind self-esteem. Before you have low self-esteem or high self-esteem, what does it take, or what is going on in your mind, in your body as well, right? Karibuni sana to the show. So before we proceed, there's a theory, or is it a fun fact, that your self-esteem tends to increase when you get to 60. You'll tell us why. You'll tell us why that happens. Some people say life begins at 40, but I think apparently your self-esteem increases as you grow older. I don't know why, but you'll tell us. So let's just start with, what is self-esteem, Alina?
Self-esteem is how you perceive yourself, your self-worth. Basically, it's how you feel about yourself. And of course, now we have the part of how you perceive yourself, and then the emotional status that comes out of that. So basically, that is what self-esteem is.
What self-esteem is. Olive, what is your idea of self-esteem? What is self-esteem to you?
It's basically how you think about yourself. What are the thoughts you have in your mind about who you are, what you're worth. Yeah, it's as simple as that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you always had high self-esteem?
No.
You and I both.
No.
Trust me. So how has your journey been? How did you get here?
To high self-esteem? It's a journey. It's a journey. Sometimes you don't know when you're growing, and sometimes you realize, you get those moments when you realize, oh, if 20-year-old me wouldn't have made this decision. So it takes time. And for us, at least I'll say in my experience, from the time you're a child, there's already experiences of colorism, but it's not very blatant. It comes out in terms of when when someone is angry at you. That's what you absorb as a child. It's not an exact thing that tells you you're ugly because you're dark. It's just something that constantly you absorb over time, and you realize that you start to shrink around lighter skinned people or people with Eurocentric features. You realize, oh, I don't have a small nose, don't have small eyes, so you shrink over time. And by the time you come to realize it, for me, it was in my 20s when I realized, oh, you really have low self-esteem. You don't feel like you're worthy of walking into rooms with other people.
Okay.
And from there, I made the deliberate decision to sort of start liking myself. But it takes also a lot of external voices, yes, external, because it's the external voices that got you there. Also, it's the external voices that sort of try to help you get out of there when someone says, you're beautiful, you're pretty. Yes.
Absolutely. And I like the fact that you've talked about childhood, that it is in your 20s that I know you remembered what you were told as a child. And it's good that Alina is here. Please tell us how and at what age does self-esteem form? How does it form? And at what age does someone know, I have high self-esteem and I have low self-esteem?
You know, I have this notion that when you're building, or the idea of building a self-esteem, it's like building a house. whereby you start with foundation, and then you keep, you know, adding until you get to the roof, and then you need to do the finishings inside. That is how self-esteem is, which means it starts from 0 to 1 to years as you grow. Because from a young age, a child doesn't understand, let's say they don't have the consciousness of self-esteem, but they do know I am secure. You know, when their needs are met, when they cry, somebody comes to comfort them. They're getting hugs. Their needs are being met. So they realize, oh, I'm worth something. They may not have words for it, but that is where the foundation of self-esteem starts, because a child feels safe. And then by the time we are getting to 3, you know, to 5 years, a child is already started to conceive. I'm worthy here. People think I'm worth something, you know. And as they keep growing, the experiences they are having with their caregivers, especially the parents at that point, the siblings, because also siblings can make you feel like you don't belong, and they hit so hard, you know, especially in families where you find the father has a different complexion, the mother, and then you have children that have different complexions. That one is very difficult for children, because then you can see, oh, this one is different. And then you walk out, you meet the neighbors, and they're already telling you, oh, your sister is so pretty, you know, because she's light-skinned, or the hair is better. So you see, that is how the self-esteem now starts to suffer from such a young age.
Yes, I also read somewhere that by the time a child is 5, personality forms by the age of 5. So at the age of 5, a child has already, you know, developed his or her personality. And what does it take to develop a personality? Before we come to Olive, she'll tell us how it was growing up. Those words, what words did you hear, and how did they shape your self-esteem? But what does it take to form personality? Is it external validation, internal? What does it take?
It's a mix of both, because there are temperaments that people are born with, but a lot of personalities you're just socialized into them. Based on the environment that you're raised in, you either learn to be outgoing, or you're quiet, or different personalities that people have. A lot, what is happening in your environment has a lot to do with it.
Okay.
Yes.
Olive, how was it growing up? Do you remember when you were 3 years old? 4? 5?
My memory is very bad. Maybe a psychologist will tell you that's trauma, but I think I start to remember
Selective
from
amnesia.
teenage. But I remember bits and pieces of childhood. I don't know if I had I don't think I had an outgoing personality. I think I've always been very drawn back. And maybe that could be birth order. Again, something we discussed before we came on set.
What position are you in your family?
A middle child.
You're a middle child.
Yeah, so it could be that there were children immediately after you, so you didn't have time to be the one who's always bubbly and out there. That could be it. But the idea of beauty, that you meet it, I don't remember it in our home, but I meet it outside a lot. So like the exact thing she said, when you leave is when someone outside will tell you, the sister, Malandocha, your sister is the light one. And your sister is like half a shade lighter than you.
Half a shade
lighter.
But bado watu watasema tu she's lighter.
So those are things you remember. When kids make fun of you, that's where you pick it. When kids are making fun at school, they tell you, uko na macho kubwa, or whatever. So that's when you pick the features, your features that are used as insults. And that's what you register as, this is not pretty. The others, maybe, I don't know what they'll get insulted with, but you register the ones you're getting insulted with are features that I guess are not acceptable or are not beauty standards.
And how did these words shape you? What impact did they have on your self-esteem growing up?
Oh, as a child, you just shrink. I don't remember being, I carried myself very confidently. And that is because I was the child of a teacher. There was no option. You had to be sent to things, go do this, go do that. So I was very confident in how I carried myself, but I never felt like I was worthy of being in rooms. Every time I'd walk into a room and find someone with your complexion, I knew there was nothing I was going to get if I get into that room. Yeah, so it slowly eats you up, but you won't know. It's either in your subconscious or completely, it's not in your conscious self that you realize this thing is chipping at me. And when you get to a particular point, you realize you are so shy. You can't go to places and claim things like other people do. And that is where even, you see, when they say hurt people,
Yeah.
that is how you go into a room, and when you see a light-skinned person, you already do not like them, yet they've done nothing wrong to you. So that's how it builds slowly. But it's very passive. It's not something you know you're experiencing. And if you never take the time to learn self-awareness, you will go through life not knowing you either have trauma or yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Alina, how does self-esteem manifest in a person's life?
Oh, there are so many, facets of that. Of how
Start with low self-esteem and then high self-esteem.
When it comes to low self-esteem, because you see yourself as not worthy. Now, it depends how you look at others. First of all, you can look at other people as if they are better than you. And then there's this bit where you also see people and you just hate them. And that is why you find, haven't you realized how some people, when they meet you, they tell you, oh, umenona, or like they just have something to say that is negative. It's actually meant to hurt you, because hurt people hurt others. In the process of hurting you, it gives them some power then to feel good about themselves. But then there is some people have a lot of, negative self-talk about themselves.
So it's internal and external.
Yes.
But does it start internally, or is it because someone said I have a big nose or big eyes or dark skin, that now I start to think about it and then I begin to have internal self-hate?
Yes, of course, there is a bit of where it comes from outside, but also as you're growing up, you picked so many things on what beauty ought to look like.
Yes.
And so it's already engraved in you, internalized completely, of what beauty ought to look like. So you realize now you build up on that.
Yes.
Start telling yourself, well, you're not good enough, you're not worthy. You shouldn't be sitting in the same spaces as some people because you don't belong there, which is really debilitating for a lot of people, and it keeps people from even achieving their dreams.
I totally agree. And I think all of us somehow, somewhere, there's a point where we've had low self-esteem, me included. I can tell you for sure that I've also had a journey with self-esteem and, external validation. And internal self-hate. You're telling yourself, you're not good enough, I'm not good enough. And, it took a lot of self-talk as well. So, Olive, tell us, at what point, what was your darkest moment? Like, what was your rock bottom?
When it comes specifically to self-esteem, that must have been around 2016. When I think I had just fresh out of campus, I think I'm looking for jobs. And it's that time when you're really putting yourself out there because you really need to get a job. We all know how the school system works in Kenya. And at that point, I actually went for these TV auditions and I was told I'm meant for radio. So we knew it was code for you have the skill, but you just don't have the look. There was that. I was in sales gigs, and sales gigs that tell you blatantly, we want a light skin with flat tummy, this tall, and you don't fit that. So there's a lot of external, everywhere you go, you are missing out an opportunity only because of how you look and not anything else.
Who's laughing now? And you look so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think that was rock bottom at that time when I was really looking for opportunities, but I was locked out only because of how I looked. And I remember, I think in that period, I didn't have a mirror in my house. So I'd get ready and then just leave the house. Never looked at myself, never did anything. And I don't remember even comprehending beauty at that time in my life. It was just like up and go. If it's a job, you go, get back. So long as you're clean, your clothes are clean, you move on. Wherever people are discussing beauty, leave. Do not engage in that conversation. And it's only with time. Oh, hey, should I get to where it sort of switched?
Tell us about it.
It was like that. It was like that for a while until Lupita won the Oscar. And then all of a sudden I was, Lupita, where to? Lupita, everywhere you go, it's like, you look like Lupita. You look like Lupita. I said, okay. So without the Oscar, we're not pretty. But then that really helped with the switch. And I know a lot of times we say, speak positively to yourself, but I will confess that for me, the voices that broke me were from outside, and the voices that built me were also from outside. It was the Lupita comments that started building me up. It was the man I dated, I think, when I was around 26. The entire period we dated, this man would wake up every day of that relationship and say, you are beautiful.
Wow.
So that, I didn't realize at the time, but way after the breakup, I was like, oh, there's a time I didn't even used to think about beauty, but right now I really feel beautiful.
Nice.
So it's like, I can say there's a lot of internal work, but the external also is very important.
Okay.
And as you've said, surround yourself with positivity. So once you know that, if you need the voices outside to be positive as well, be in positive spaces.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Alina, what does it take, or how do media and societal standards shape or contribute to issues of low self-worth, especially in relation to skin tone and skin bleaching? Before you tell us why you wanted to bleach your skin, Olive.
I think the media plays a role in exposing people to the ideals of beauty. Because you realize even in movies, even the ones that people watch, you realize there are roles that are reserved specifically for people who are either light-skinned. But if you need, even the typical Hollywood, if you need somebody who is a witch, let's get the darkest, you know? If you need a house help,
if there's
you know?
is a play of the devil and Jesus, the devil is
Black.
Jesus
exactly.
is white.
So the media shapes of what beautiful looks like. And you see somebody like Olive, she didn't even think so much about beauty. It means people had to tell her what beauty was. Otherwise, I feel like her upbringing, the way she grew up, there was so much that beauty wasn't something to keep on talking about, and she didn't internalize it, which is something we can also learn with our children without necessarily just focusing on the looks, on the outer part, because you're communicating something. And if you teach them being told you're this, somebody else also has the power to, do the same.
And I agree with you, because I've seen many videos of children, white children and black children playing together without even recognizing that I'm white, she's black, So racism and colorism are taught. That's what you're saying.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Olive, at what point did you want to bleach your skin?
It's not a particular anecdotal point. It's a thought that sits at the back of your mind. And sometimes you think about it, and then sometimes maybe Vera Sidika comes out and she's bleached and she looks nice. And you're like, by the way. But it's a thought that's just at the back of your mind. Until I got to the point where I was very confident in how I look, it was just a thought that sat there constantly. But then there were also fears to going in this now what is it called? Pursuing this bleaching. At the time when I was thinking, I thought about it a lot. At random times, you'll just think about it. And then you'll now start weighing. That's where the emotional intelligence comes in. I'm so glad for being emotional intelligent. So then you start weighing, and you're like, first of all, self-awareness. I know I'm a very lazy girl. I am very lazy. If anything is going up against my laziness, it will lose. So that I know, and the way I know bleaching to be, you had to be at it for a couple of years, I think. There was a routine you have to observe, I think every morning, every evening. I said, Olive, you who can't even cook 3 meals in a day, do you think? So such things hold you back. There's also fears for what happens at that time when your knuckles haven't caught up with the rest of your skin. Do I walk around with gloves? What if because there's also horror stories. What if the cream you've been given is fake? What if it backfires? What happens? So I think it's fear that held me back a lot. But I usually say, if I were 20, and bleaching was easy, I don't think I'd have been dark right now. Yes, I think it was the laziness that held me back.
What made you think about skin bleaching?
Because lighter was always better. Even the TV auditions that I failed, it was only because of how I looked. What is it called? The comparison. There's places where I've come in where you've been taken out of a job and it's been given to someone who looks extremely different from you. So the skin is the problem. And sometimes people would say it blatantly. We know the media is not very good at coddling people. They'll just tell you outrightly.
Yes.
No. Hapa tunataka mtu who can appeal, people who can bring what is it called? Viewership. Even for sales, it's people who can attract customers to come. And being a woman, you're appealing to men, what men want, and men want yellow. So I think it's a very deeply rooted societal thing. But yeah, that's my experience. I remember. Yeah.
Okay, Alina. So how do we boost that esteem? So for Olive, she was told we need a person with light skin. So how do you differentiate between healthy self-improvement and actions rooted in low self-esteem like skin bleaching?
Yeah. This one I would look at the motivation. What motivates someone to decide I want to do this? You know, do you want to improve yourself? Do you want self-growth? You know, you look at, she talked about the fear that things could go wrong.
Yes.
You know, some people, even if there is danger or potential danger, they don't back out. You know, so you look at the motivation. What are your beliefs around that? And are you ready to do it at any cost? Some people are told because of this pre-existing medical condition,
Yes.
things can go so wrong, and we've had people die. Haven't we witnessed it even in the media?
Suicide,
you know,
like suicide, yes.
Not even just suicide, the procedure that they are doing going so wrong. So it's the motivation. What motivates you to want to do something? Is it for yourself?
Yeah.
Or is it for others to accept you because you felt you're rejected? Just like she wanted to do
Yes.
it because now when she goes for auditions, she can get it.
Yeah.
So that tells you the motivation wasn't her. She was comfortable with her skin as it was. It's other people who are not comfortable with her skin. And she started now internalizing that to want to do something to please other people. So now you realize the motivation there is
external.
it's not because you want to improve yourself.
Okay. And I know we have different levels of esteem, low self-esteem, high self-esteem, kuna ka graph up.
Yeah.
And sometimes, of course, utalala, ukijiambia, wow, I'm not good enough, but you wake up and you feel better. But at what point does someone need, professional help with their self-esteem?
One is when, for instance, you have low self-esteem and it's affecting multiple areas of your life. Let it be your career, your relationships, because if you have low self-esteem, you can't even be in a healthy relationship because you're so insecure. Yes. You're so sensitive about every comment. You take it, like somebody is attacking you. And then when you realize that your emotional and your psychological state is tanking, and then it's co-occurring with other mental illnesses like anxiety, depression, eating disorders. They are very common. Okay. And you've tried your own ways, it didn't work. And the extreme of it, some people even develop self-harm and suicidal behaviors. Yeah. So when you get there, you definitely need help.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Alina. We're going to take a very short break. And when we come back, Olive has authored 2 audiobooks about one that we want to focus on. There are 2, but we want to focus on one about emotional intelligence. And I'm keen on one that is about self-esteem. One chapter, we'll focus on that chapter called Am I Ugly? And we'll talk about men as well. I know we are women here. We really try to have men, but due to unavoidable circumstances. But be rest assured that we are keen on gender balance. So we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about men and self-esteem and, what it takes to boost your self-esteem. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, this is the Health and Wellness Show. My name is Chebet Birir, and on set I have Olive Orawo and Alina Obado, who is a counseling psychologist.
Yes.
Olive is a digital creator and an audiobook author, two-time. And we want to talk about her audiobook. We are talking about self-esteem and self-worth. And Olive has written an audiobook about that. It's called Can I Unsubscribe?
Yes.
Please tell us about that book.
So Can I Unsubscribe is a labor of love. I just put it out because I used to share a lot of my stories with people on my social spaces. And sometimes you can't be able to document everything. So I said, let me put them in a structured way and then put them into a book so that people can access them. And that is why it's actually sold per chapter, because I don't feel like it's right to sell you a whole book at 1,500, yet you only just need to know what do I do when I lose my job. So you can only buy the chapter relevant to you.
Okay.
And the chapter that we are talking about right now is the second chapter, Am I Ugly?
Am I Ugly? Yes.
Which was actually inspired by all these are real life stories. So something that we've talked about is low self-esteem can happen in men as well. I know we talk about it from the perspective of women, but if you look at the chapter of the book, it starts with a story of a man who was actually rejected just for how he looks. And we've seen terms like short king and men who approach you already defending themselves for being short. So all of that plays into self-esteem. And self-esteem, as she has said, it will manifest on the outside, and sometimes you might find you hurt other people. And maybe that's what we are seeing with the aggressiveness that we see from men sometimes when they are rejected, and it's because you feel like I'm not good enough.
Yes.
No one has told you you're not good enough. I just have a preference. So that's where it's going. And then for the second character in the book, it's a girl who, of course, has faced colorism. That was definitely my story. So I think I have covered that already.
It's very interesting how you're using pain as purpose. See, I bought that book on, not the book, the chapter on Am I Ugly? And yes, the man talks about you talk about the man facing rejection from a relationship. And I remember those words of, I can't even refer you to our house help at home.
Yes.
Alina, is there a difference in self-esteem when it comes to men and women? And how does it affect men specifically? Because for women, we've talked about it, it's mostly about beauty standards, mostly about, external validation on how they look. How is it with men?
First of all, when it comes to men, is really different. When it comes to the external looks, it can be maybe in terms of height, because men are expected to be tall, dark and handsome, and so some people will even have low self-esteem because they are light-skinned, unlike women, where it's the other way around.
Yes.
And then now theirs is more measured on their achievements, as provider. You must have the better job.
Yes.
And you see the market is changing nowadays. Ladies are able to rise up, get great jobs and do so well financially. And so men can now, theirs can now manifest in that way, whereby even when you're in a relationship, it feels like an attack. Anything a woman says, it feels like an attack to you.
Yes.
Because you're relating to how the society raised you to look at yourself, what makes you a man. A macho man, being able to have money, being able to provide, being able to provide, to even control people, in the process. But now the society, things are changing, and therefore it can now manifest to men having low self-esteem just because they are not able to meet the standards of what a man ought to look like.
Olive, what should a man look like in your perspective?
Well, I'll just use the reference of the book because I think I'll piggyback off what she's just said, that men will now compensate it with other things. And the character in the book actually, when he gets a little money, he hits the gym, he drinks protein, he gets a lot of money, he buys the nice cars. And all this is just so I can prove. And you see that happened when he was in high school. But this is now, you are 30 years old and you're still trying to prove that I have more. Don't just look at my shortness and my darkness. So I think, I don't know what it would look like for men. I really would want to hear it from the perspective of a man.
I wish we had a man here.
Yeah. So for us, we can only see it from as them being aggressive towards
Yes.
us, because that's what we experience. But I can't tell what it feels like to be a man. I've held spaces for men, and I can tell they had to. I can tell they go through the experiences we go through, but I can't say that I can speak for them to know how to show up for women or for themselves better. Yeah.
Okay, Alina, we've had cases just here in our country where men have killed because of rejection. Ulienda ukakatia dem, akakukataa, ukamuua. Does that have to do with self-esteem?
It does, to some degree, not always, because also for someone to kill, you can tell there's something bigger. So there can be this moment of anger that can be a motivation, just like Olive was talking about, anger, their aggression, those moments. But also there could be disorders involved, because a normal person, there's a way they know when to turn back when it's getting too far, unless it's like you're too aggressive and then it ends up the way you didn't see it. But we see these ones that plan meticulously. You lure someone into a house, or you tell them, let's get back together, and all along you are planning something. So I feel that to some degree, it may have graduated from just disorder, which is actually self-esteem can graduate, whereby there's a lot of emotions involved. It can graduate to depression, it can graduate to other disorders, where now we see people doing extreme things that they wouldn't have done, because suicidality also comes with homicidal ideas.
Please
where now you want
that
to, like,
layman's
instead of
language.
people who want to kill, or rather to just harm themselves to die, they want to do it to others. So that is what homicidal now means. You want to direct it to somebody else to harm them.
Is it like projection? Projection on the other?
Because you really want to do it, so it's not really yeah. So the insecurities, because that manifests in men a lot. They're so insecure, they're so jealous, and then they end up with stalking behavior, and then you realize they've done the worst.
Something irreversible.
Yes.
At what point do you know that I'm going too far?
When you realize you're not in control of it, the thoughts that you have around that. Because, for instance, for people in therapy, for instance, the people that you would encounter in therapy, you will be able to catch some of those things when you hear the thoughts. Now, the thing becomes difficult when you're sitting with your own thoughts with nobody else to support you in those thoughts. Because now, for me as a therapist, when I realize these thoughts are getting out of control and you're not able to control yourself and I can't help you in the moment, then I am also obligated to do something else outside of this that can support you.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We'll come back to you. But now Olive is an emotional intelligence coach.
Yes.
How does emotional intelligence come in terms of self-esteem?
Emotional intelligence is very key, and the bedrock of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. So that's why I told you it was very pivotal for me at 20 to realize, wait, why am I walking into the rooms slumped? Why am I walking into the room already expecting to be rejected? So self-awareness is very key. And then the other part that emotional intelligence plays is being able to know how to react, how to regulate those emotions. You see, like the way she's saying, it gets to extremes. So emotional intelligence is good for how to catch yourself before you get to the extreme, how to sit back, regulate, know how to react in the correct way so that no one is harmed in the process of either solving or you being hurt, just knowing your limits. And I don't know if people know this, but emotional intelligence constitutes 75% of success in life. So you might be the smartest person in the room, but do you know how to interact with people? Do you know when to say, what to say, how to say it? So that's how emotional intelligence basically helps you through different things in life.
All right.
Yes.
Alina, can emotional intelligence be taught?
The specialist is here.
Or can I be born nikiwa tu emotionally intelligent? Ama nizaliwe tu nikaa sina totally.
Let the specialist tell us.
Olive, tuambie.
I say I'm a very lucky person because my emotional intelligence was built from very many facets. There's a little trauma here where you grew up in an unstable environment. So you are very hyper vigilant. So you know how to read someone's mood, someone's room. So that comes from there. I can't change your childhood for you to have that skill, right? For me, I had to have it because you had a very strict mom. So you had to know what mood she's in, when to approach. Yes.
You and I both.
When to approach, when to hold back. Yes. So with that, you become hyper vigilant and you can read very easily. So that was part of it. Part of it was actually the self-esteem we've talked about today. Yes. Because you know you can't rely on beauty, you harness other skills. So your brain, your knowledge, your all of that, that's where you spend all your time. So you're able to know a lot of things. And also for me, it's being ahead of my time. I've had so many experiences where I experienced something before people caught on with it, like 3 years later, 4 years later. So it's almost like just giving someone insight from an experience I've had before. But when I started emotional intelligence coaching, I realized it's not something everyone can have. You might have it to some extent, but that is why now I offer the coaching. So I can guide you through it. I'll show you how, you see what this looks like. You see they'll do this and this and that. And then the first session, someone will be like, oh yeah, it happened like that. I'm like, yes, if you just observe human trends, nothing is new under the sun. So it takes a little bit of coaching, but yes, it can be trained. And for others, it comes easier than others because of their past.
Awesome.
Yes.
Alina, how can we teach children? Is it teachable? Because I know you're a mother.
Yes.
You're a mother and you're a psychologist. So can we teach our children to have high self-esteem?
Yes. And it's not by telling them to have self-esteem.
How do we do that?
You can model it.
Yes.
You know, how, for instance, having a conversation with your children. Because there's the idea of failure and success. And, you know, children encounter those things and they build into their self-esteem is one of them. So when you tell your child your experience of failure, when I encountered this is what happened. This is what I did with it. These are the lessons that I learned. You know, you're teaching them how to, you know, when they encounter failure next time, and then exposing them to learning opportunities, not coddling them and doing everything for them. You need to expose them to real life situations. They do things, they work out, and then you comment don't integrate their personalities and their worth into situations. Learn to the language that you use with your children. For instance, you look at their essay that they brought home. Remember how they sat down and worked on it. You tell them, oh, you really worked on this so well. Or these drawings, I love the colors on it. This generic good job, you know, good boy, you know, good girl. We need to drop these
I'm guilty
languages.
of that.
Yes. Use, why are they good girl? Like, what is it that is good girl about it?
Okay.
So comment on that specific thing. And then don't label them.
So for
that
example,
you're not a boy.
if she does the dishes well, you're a good girl is wrong.
No,
You've done the
wrong.
dishes so well.
Yes,
it's like,
and they are so clean. Yes, so use
Yeah,
words
clinical class.
correctly.
Yes. Okay. Okay, that's interesting.
Can I
So,
just...
please.
I can say something that I saw on Instagram, and you can tell me what your thoughts are. There's a woman who said that when you're raising your kids, especially girls, you tell them they're beautiful, they're beautiful, they're beautiful. And when they wear makeup or when they dress up, you tell them now you look fancy. So that they attach beautiful to them being natural and fancy to them accessorizing. So I don't know what your thoughts are.
I think that there should be a difference so that your child knows. But personally, from experience, I don't like dwelling too much on the outward look. So in as much as, yes, my child knows that I know that I would say she is beautiful once in a while, but let that not be the highlight of everything. You see, the way you were talking about an all-round, that when beauty wasn't working, because you see, there is a way you will tell them one thing in the house and the society will tell them other things, like it happened even with you.
Yes.
So which means you need to focus on all areas of your child. So in as much as, yes, you want them to know they are beautiful, you also focus on other areas. Or even they are smart. Don't just tell your child they are smart. You know, what is it that is smart
It's
about
making them smart.
Identify a specific thing and comment on that specific thing, on exactly what it is. And also focus on progress and effort, not the final product.
Result,
Or even comparing your children. because one is gifted this way, another one is gifted that way. One looks like this, the other one looks like this. So balancing that as a parent can be very complicated, but just
Very
learning
tricky.
the language you use with your children, it can now show them what really matters.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's now go back to still on self-worth, yeah?
Yeah.
Where is the line? What's the difference between grandiosity and high self-esteem? You know, how worthy is self-worth? Let's start with Olive.
Self-esteem and
Grandiosity.
just
Mimi
grandiose.
ule msee, hakuna kile mtanishow.
I think a lesson I've come to learn in life is you can't define things for people. And if someone is either arrogant or they have a level of grandiose, a problem of grandiosity, that doesn't have to be your problem until it affects you. So if I walk into the room and I feel like Chebet is so arrogant, that is you. Unless I have my own insecurities that your arrogance makes me feel a little small,
Okay.
then there I might address it. But I feel like usually when I meet arrogant people, it's their personality. I don't think there's much to do with it. Like self-esteem, those lines can be blurry because we've seen people who are very, and I think it's an experience I've
Confident.
had.
Is there something like overconfidence?
Yes, because I don't know if I've mentioned it in the book, but you've seen conventionally pretty girls who this narrative is harmful to them as well. Because when someone walks into the room and they're usually the one who gets the attention, if someone else gets the attention, then they spiral.
Okay.
Because their entire identity is based on beauty. So it's neither here nor there, but you have to choose it for yourself.
Okay.
You have to, yes.
Acha Alina tuelezee kama psychologist.
Yeah, now when it comes to self-esteem and grandiosity, it becomes a problem where you feel like you're better than everybody else. That is where now it becomes a problem. Like if I'm working with someone and their idea of having high confidence is by bringing others down, or feeling they're the most important, or rating themselves without, you can rate yourself unrealistically and impose that on others, that you need to see me like that. Or I step on you to be there. Now that is what now differentiates healthy self-esteem and grandiosity. Because then you're trying to bring others down or force others to look at you in a certain way. That's where now I would see the difference.
All right, we're almost wrapping up. But now on there's this other extreme of imposter syndrome. Me, I've been there. I won't lie. Where you feel like, I'm not good enough for this task, or I can't do this, and yet you went to school for that. You've had more than 7 years of experience of that.
Yes.
How do we combat this, or what needs to be done in your perspective and hers? Let's start with you.
In my perspective, I've come to see a very fresh perspective when it comes to imposter syndrome. I realized every time I had imposter syndrome, it was because I was in a room that scared me. And that's a good thing. When I'm in a room of people who I didn't think I was worth being here. But then now I remind myself, if you made it here, then they also think you are there. Yeah? They also think you're there. So I think imposter syndrome is a necessary feeling to have. You should have it when you're going through the different stages in your life, while you're reaching for different milestones. But also it comes down to you self-doubt again. It will come down to self-esteem and all of that. And you have to catch it when it's healthy and when it's crippling you. Because I think the past 3 years or so, I was in a level of imposter syndrome where I didn't feel like it crippled me. Like I know I'm good, but once I get there, I just cannot get in. And yeah, so it's not a bad thing, but don't let it cripple you. Everything in its excess is a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the day-to-day strategies or practical activities or things that we can do to boost our self-esteem? Alina?
First of all, the people you keep around you. Because for Olive, for instance, the external environment meant so much to her. That's people who are speaking into her. and confidence. So which means you need to surround yourself with people who are like that. And for a season, you can choose to stay away from those that every time they're, putting you down. Another thing is changing that negative self-talk. First of all, catch it. What are those negative things you tell yourself? Note them, note the patterns. Then question their validity. Because you realize, okay, you tell yourself you're lazy. Because I listened to you
But
tell
I don't
yourself how
think she
lazy
is.
you are.
If you were lazy,
Question
you wouldn't have
that.
come
Like
here.
let's check the validity of that.
Yes.
You will find maybe it's 10% that has made you conclude that you're lazy, but then you have 90% that speaks to you.
Yes.
And then you start turning this from being the lazy, I'm using this example because it was here, and then you use the 90% as evidence. Even researchers use that. If you get 90%, you're doing extremely well. So you can't say you're lazy because of 10%. It means you're convincing yourself otherwise. And then you start the positive, self-talk. And of course, if you need more help, like all these things that you're doing on your own, like I'm saying, they are not working, that is where now we revert to seeking for help from specialists that can help you restructure.
And I like that you've talked about seeking for help. How important is it in terms of counseling and in terms of emotional intelligence coaching? Because both of you are a counselor and a coach.
In terms of counseling, when it comes to self-esteem, it goes deeper than, we go to the roots, if it's a specialist, because it has layers. And sometimes without demolishing layer after layer, you're not able to reach to, because there's a beauty or relief that comes when people know it's not my fault. Because people hate themselves thinking, how can I hate myself like they hate themselves for hating themselves? Then you go to therapy, you realize, oh my goodness, it started here. It wasn't even my fault. And then we have structured ways to support you, target each behavior. Because you see, now we are talking generally. She is different. When you sit here with somebody else, it will be a different story, what can be helpful for them. So if you prescribe one thing, it's different, but in therapy, it's individualized. What works for you. And then you follow that through with progressive monitoring from a specialist. Assignment day to day to support you in your daily activity, because changing your mind and your thoughts can be quite tasking. But having a coach, just like she is a coach, who can guide you through that, it can be very, very effective.
Olive, tell us the importance of emotional intelligence coaching.
Well, emotional intelligence coaching is very situational, unlike therapy. And people come to me a lot thinking it's therapy. So I tell them often, it's not therapy, it's an accessory to therapy. Because it's very situational. You come to me with a problem you're having now, will not be able to unpack your childhood, will only solve, oh, your boss is disturbing you right now. Let's see what we can do with that boss right now. So that's all. And after that, how do you equip yourself for the next one? So emotional intelligence is very situational, helps you get through that point. And that's a gap I realized, because I noticed sometimes someone doesn't want to go through the entire hassle of therapy. It's not unpacking per se. It's this one situation, I want to deal with it right now. So that's what I am basically offering, just to guide you through. And once you've gone through the first situation, if a similar one occurs in the future, you probably will have it. And usually I also discourage the idea of being reliant or dependent on a specialist. So that is why I have things like books, emotional tools that you can keep in your house to use, so that it's not, I'm in a crisis, Olive. It's not a help hotline.
I agree. Okay, now as we finish up, we have 3 minutes to go. Final quote from each of you. Alina.
What I would say, self-esteem journey, the journey of building your self-esteem, it's not a destination that you get here and arrive. It's a journey you walk through, like tending up to a garden, because you find sometimes you get there, what you thought, you thought you were complete, and you meet things that can really humble you, but then learning that you can still work on it and still gain your self-confidence back. So it's not a destination. It's something that we work towards.
Thank you, Alina. It's not a destination.
It's not a destination.
Olive?
I'd say the same thing. We have a slogan as the By Olive. We call ourselves the Happier Tribe. And we say we are only seeking happiness, not perfection. So when you are human, you'll realize I usually say sometimes people over-intellectualize their problem. They want to solve every single thing. Sometimes do it for the plot. Wacha ianguke, ujiokote, uendele. Human is to error, so there's no perfection.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much
You're most
for making time to come on the show, Alina and Olive.
most welcome.
Olive is a digital creator. You can find her on Instagram, Facebook, and X. Are you on X? I didn't find you on X.
No, TikTok.
Instagram and Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Yes.
Alina is also on Instagram. Are you also on Facebook?
I'm on Instagram, I am on Facebook, under Anchored Light.
Nice.
Yes.
And she's on all those platforms as by Olive.
Yes.
Thank you so much for making time to come on our
you.
show. I've learned so much. I've learned and unlearned
Yes,
as a parent. As
I
a
have learned
person.
as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, that's how we wrap up the show. Remember, self-esteem is not about being perfect. It's about, accepting who you are and working on what you need to work on, growing where you need to grow. Kama haiwezi wachana na. If it's something you cannot change, leave it. You're good enough the way you are. God created you uniquely, and so you can't be someone else. So quit trying to be someone else. You're good enough the way you are, and just what you need to do is work on yourself, on where you need to work on yourself. Show up with kindness, and remember to be kind to everyone, because you cannot shine your light by dimming someone else's light. Sawa sawa. That's it. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you again next week. My name is Chebet Birir. Have yourself a lovely evening.